Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sarah Rosette.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show we have...
Mike Stop Continues.
Yes, we do. It's so good.
Yes. He's talking about websites, all about like what you need and why you need one. And he has built some really interesting software that sounds very helpful. I haven't used it, but it sounds like exactly what authors need. So
yeah, I saw it demonstrated. He and his husband, Oliver, they have built the software. Mike is a coder. Oliver's a graphic designer. And I saw it demoed at 20 Books Vegas, and it is unbelievable. It's so great. Also, it's so affordable. It's really, really amazingly affordable for new authors and, well, any author, but especially new authors. Yeah. And so we'll let Mike tell you all about it, but it was
so we talked about that. Yeah. He's got great tips on like what you need on your website and how to help people navigate. And we talk about press kits, stuff that, I hadn't really thought about before. So
me either.
It's really good. Really good. And trends, talk about trends and what's coming up, when to follow them and when to ignore them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, I don't have any news this week. None that I want to share on the podcast. It's been a week around here. So, but if you'd remember my family in your thoughts and prayers, we'd appreciate it. So, Sarah, what's been going on with you?
Okay, well, I have news, and it was that we had a mom raccoon and a baby raccoon in our attic. And I will bring this back around to writing here in a second. So it took us a week to get it all clear, get them cleared out, rehomed, and make sure there were no more, and then close up the holes outside our house and in our ceiling and walls. So that's all done. So I sent a newsletter today to my list, and you know how you can split test what you have. So I put one line, I put uninvited guest and a little emoji con thing of the of a raccoon. And then on the other one, I just put raccoons, y'all, ! And guess which one is
performing the better?
Yeah. So that's an example. I talked about, what had happened and, what I've been doing lately. So that was just like a little slice of life thing that I put in there. And then I talked about books, but man, that got people clicking. And it was like something that I wouldn't have thought of, but it is a little unusual. So, so split test and see what you can find.
Yeah, that's something I don't do enough. I really just don't do it enough, mostly because I'm lazy, but I just I don't do it.
Well, ConvertKit does it automatically. They have you can choose, you put 2 in, and then it serves a percentage of them go out, and then they wait like an hour or two and they test, and whichever one does the best, then the rest of your list gets the one that got the most clicks. So you don't even have to do anything. I don't do much split testing like that. So.
That's good. That's good.
So so that is like the most excitement we've had, and that's been a doozy. Never had that before. So
yeah, it's always fun when you get a critter that doesn't belong. Yeah,
I know. And once they were out in the cage, they were pretty cute, but they weren't so cute at 2:00 in the morning
when they're going
walking around. Yeah.
I hate that sound. Yeah. All right. Well, we should get to the podcast because it is fabulous.
All right. So here is Mike.
All right.
Today, we are really excited to talk to Mike Stop Continues. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. And we're glad you're here. We've been wanting to talk to you for about a couple of months now. So we've got lots of questions.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm super happy to be here. I can't wait to get started.
Okay. All right. Well, let me read your bio and then we'll get into the questions. Mike founded Site Arcade to help authors spend less time marketing and more time writing. As a writer himself, he advocates free speech, free culture, and free ice cream. Yes. He's a practicing Stoic and an avid futurist. So what's your favorite ice cream? I have to ask very quickly.
Butter pecan.
Oh, nice. There you go. Okay. Or as we say in Texas, butter pecan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you really geolocated me right there.
Yes, I did. I did. Even though you are in Texas.
Yeah, I've managed to incorporate y'all into my vocabulary. I'm working on the rest of it.
Yeah. Pecans next. Well, tell us how you got started working with. Well, first of all, tell us what Site Arcade is. I think that's probably a good place to start.
Yeah, great. So Site Arcade is a new kind of author website hosting platform. So with us, when you sign up, you paste in your Amazon author profile URL. We immediately pull all your data from Amazon. We generate a color palette based on your book covers. We generate brand assets like favicon and fonts based on your genre. And then within a minute, you have a website ready to go. Now, naturally, you could tweak it, before you bring it live. But the really cool part is that every time you publish a new book on Amazon, it automatically gets added to your site, and we automatically promote it in place of your, mailing list sign up for a couple of weeks following launch. Same thing if you run a deal. Same thing if you launch a pre-order. Automatically gets promoted, and then the site falls back to driving people towards your list or whatever you have your regular call to action is. So the idea is that you sign up with Site Arcade. You build your website once, and then you could never sign in again, knowing that your website is doing what you expect it to be doing. And so that's basically, my husband and I, we're both authors. You guys know this. Yes. And I'm a coder, he's a graphic designer, and we didn't want to maintain our own websites. And so we started talking to other authors, and we realized that no author wants to maintain their website. And so we thought, let's come up with a solution for that.
Right.
That's just like a dream come true, I think.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Really and truly, it is. I mean, the fact that you could run a sale, and I can't tell you how many times I've gone back to my website and the pre-order link is still up for my book, and that book's been published like a month, and I didn't change it. So the fact that all of that just happens in the background is amazing. I love it so much. Yeah. So now tell us how you got started working with authors.
Okay. So as I mentioned, Oliver and I, Oliver Altair and myself, we're both authors, and like I said, we found that we had this problem that we didn't want to maintain our websites, and then we saw that no other author did, and it was worse for other authors, I think, because I think many of us, aren't programmers by day, and so don't have the same sort of technical skill. Maybe don't feel comfortable with graphic design, or don't feel comfortable with copywriting or any of that stuff. And most importantly, authors are so time strapped because, one, writing novels takes a huge amount of time compared to basically any other thing that you could be doing. And then on top of that, you have to market, you have to network, you have to promote in a gazillion ways, learn how to run ads, learn how to do a million things that you never expected you would do when you signed up for being an author, right? And so the fact that websites are very important and also very often neglected, it just meant that it was something that we had to do.
That's so great. It is such a need in the community, really in any community that needs a website, but especially the author community, because that also takes a different part of your brain to do. Like if you're in creative mode, for me, it takes a different part. Even though you are being a little bit creative, it's a different kind of creative. And so I think it's just great. I think it's answering a big need in the community.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of the things that have come out of the author community, that authors see something, they're like, oh, this really, we need a fix for this. And then they create it.
Yeah, like BookFunnel.
Yeah,
exactly.
Perfect example. And may you have the success that BookFunnel has had. From my lips to God's ears. Yeah,
it's a nightly fantasy of mine.
Damon, I hope you hear this.
What do you wish authors knew about the field of website development?
I think the biggest thing that every author decides at some point they're going to build their website, right? And they don't realize just how long it's going to take and just how painful it's going to be, right? Especially if this is your first time building a website and you have to suddenly learn not only how to set up either WordPress or Squarespace or Wix or one of those, But also you have to learn layout, you have to learn typography, you have to learn color, and then you have to learn, search engine optimization and how to make it look good on mobile and how to make it accessible to people who, are hard of sight. Like there's a million things that go into making a website. And I think that the biggest thing is just the amount of time that goes in. I typically recommend to authors that you put a price on your time. How much are you worth per hour, either by your day job or by how much you would get paid for writing that next novel at that time. And then you see if it's going to be worth a few weeks of time to put together a website, or if it would be better to pay for maybe a tool that does it for you, for instance, SiteArcade, or if you're on the high end of things and you really, really, really want to make the next, Wizarding World website and you want to pay a professional to do it, right? But I think in some cases it does make sense to build your website yourself, but I think in most cases your time is better spent writing.
Yeah, I would agree. Most things, our time is better spent writing. And then even if you do decide to hire it out to a developer or designer, then you have to research that and you have to find somebody, and that's like a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. So I think that something that's kind of like a plug and play solution for authors is great.
Yeah. One thing about that is that whenever you outsource, I think the first thing that you really have to do is be competent enough to know what good looks like, right? Because if you start throwing money out before you know what a good whatever it is, whether it's if you're paying a social marketing manager or you're paying for a website, you need to have some knowledge going in. It doesn't have to be a lot. I mean, it could be reading a few blogs or something, but at least knowing that you're going to get something that'll be valuable to you in the future is important.
Right. So Mike, speaking of the value of something, tell us how much SiteArcade is, because I think this is like part of the best, one of the best parts of it. So.
Yeah. So SiteArcade, we have 3 plans. 2 of them are out now, and our pro plan is in development. So if you're pre-published, if you haven't published your first book, we have a $75 per year plan for you that includes custom domain and email. Then if you're an early author, right, we have an early author plan that's out now. It's, up to 5 books. And for that plan, we charge $150 a year, also includes a custom domain and free email. And then the pro plan that we're working on now is the sort of like fully featured everything website. And that's $300 per year, same as, custom domain, custom email addresses. And $300 a year is basically comparable to what you would have to pay for Wix or Squarespace or something like that. Far cheaper than you would have to pay for the number of WordPress plugins and themes that you would get. And we charted that price point because one, our value is just, I think, is so much higher because our tools are all geared towards making your life as an author easy, rather than Wix or Squarespace, which is where you're building the page one block at a time, and nothing is custom for authors. With us, everything is for authors.
Yeah. I just think that's amazing. And I love the fact that it's below $100 for someone new, because they don't have a lot of money, but it is important to have a website. But I usually tell people in my consulting, like, your website should be the last thing you do because it costs you money and you don't have that money. But if it's something you could do for $75 or even $150, I would say, yeah, put that on the list, because that is money well spent. I just love that. I think that's so awesome.
Real quick, would you advise authors to have a website? Do you feel most authors need a website?
Yes. And I also think that they need a website early. Now, look, first thing you want is a mailing list, right? Yeah, everybody knows that. I'm not going to dispute that. But the second thing I think that you want is a website. 1, because it points to your mailing list. And 2, because it starts building your brand and your presence online, right? No matter what social platforms you decide to be on, they're going to point to this place, right? This place is your hub. This is the canonical place where you live. And so you want to be able to promise readers what experience you're going to deliver when that first book comes out, so they know that they should care about you, right? And I think that that's the one thing that you get. Also, I guess there's a secondary thing here, which is that a reader needs to know that you're going to be worth 8 hours of their time. And so looking like a pro online makes a difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely it does. And so it's going on the list up high when I have my consultations. And because, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I have been surprised, and I was a late adopter to this, and I'm embarrassed to even say this, but I had a free novella that I was giving away at the end of a book. And just a year and a half ago, I was like, I should probably give that away on my website for a newsletter sign up.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it for 2.5 years at that point or something. And I had and the difference in signups from them just signing up to nothing to signing up with something is amazing. But I mean, I didn't really understand the value even of that. I didn't even understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we feel like that there's not like nobody's going to come to our website. Nobody's going to find it. But like when I go look at my stats and stuff, most of the time the top result is Sarah Rosette books in order, and so people are searching. And if they can come to my site and find what they need and it's, well done, then that's a good thing. You don't want them to be clicking around the internet going, oh, I just want to know where book 2 is, what it is. And Amazon search is terrible. So we want to make it easy, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's a lot to be said for being that your website is always going to be your first result on Google, unless there's a lot of people with your name, in which case you probably chose a pen name anyway. But your website's going to be the top result. And so when somebody searches for you, either because they heard you on a podcast or maybe they saw you on social media or some friend told them about you, you want them to have some place to go,
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike, what do you wish you'd known about indie publishing and or working with authors when looking back?
The one thing that I really wish I would have known going into being an indie author is that if you want to get rich from your writing, you need to treat your writing like a business first. Writing has to be a business first, which means that you have to do a lot of work in terms of educating yourself about every part of running a business, not just an author business, but a real business if you want real business results. And you need to make decisions with your business hat on. That said, the second thing I learned after I got real depressed that I wasn't becoming a millionaire off books was that it's okay if you don't want to get rich from writing, right? You could be anything from either being the next Michelangelo and just making every buck you can off the books that you publish, all the way down to you publish the exact books that you wish were in the world. And you could be anywhere in between there. You can make enough money to be, to be self-sustaining, and just comfortable, or greater or lesser than. And I think that that's really important because as authors, when we hear people on podcasts, when we go to conferences, when we read books about success stories, it's easy to get caught up in somebody else's dreams instead of our own dreams. And so I think that I would have made much different choices had I known myself well enough going into being an indie author than I ended up doing.
Oh, such a good answer. And I mean that sincerely. That is such a good answer because I think a lot of us don't think about that until maybe our backs are against the wall sometimes. And then we have to reevaluate. Yeah. I think that's great.
Yeah. I think the default is that you're going to make all your income with your books, your fiction books. And that's the dream, and if it works out, that's great. But oftentimes it doesn't. And it doesn't mean that you can't do other things besides write your fiction books. And sometimes it takes the pressure off to do other things and just kind of do that on the side. Your books are your side hustle instead of your main income.
I think that that's a really good model too, because I mean, like all throughout history, people were, even the biggest names were not making the bulk of their money from writing, right? They were writing the books that they wanted to see in the world. And I think that's really important for books. That's important for readers, and it's important for us as creators.
Yeah. Very good.
What do you see authors doing that they're doing because they think they have to, but aren't producing results?
I think the biggest one that I see is authors chasing trends. And this comes in a few different forms. One of them is jumping onto every single new social media platform just because it exists. And I think that, and there's definitely a place for being on social media, but I think it's better if you focus on the one or two where you're really good, what really matches who you are as a person, right? Not racing to the next place because somebody else is there. Similarly, there's these marketing tactics crazes that happen. So like right now, the one is Kickstarter, and Kickstarter's great. And I'm sure it's going to make a lot of people money, but just because Kickstarter's hot right now doesn't mean that you have to do it, right? You need to know what your strategy is as an author first. And you need to pick the tactics that are going to, synergize with the direction that you're already headed in. last but not least, is tropes, right? So tropes come and go. Some authors who are very, very fast can hit those tropes as they reach the top of the charts. But most of the time, I think it would be better for authors to focus on core emotions and write those books, right? Write about love and envy and revenge and the stories that people are going to be able to read in 20 years, let alone, 200 years, right?
Right.
And
yeah, I agree with that completely. Yeah. Especially the trope thing, like just writing the emotional book, the book it's the book you want to see in the world, but it's also the book that you want people to experience, and emotion gives people the experience. And so I think that's great. Yeah. Very good answer for that, Mike. What are the most common mistakes you see authors making?
I think this one, I would have to say, not systematizing their business. Right. And so I think there's a lot of things that you could do to sort of like organize become more productive. But one of them is like, figure out what are the tasks that you do over and over and over again, and like break those down into like a process, right? Optimize that process, document it. And that way, whether or not you're ready to outsource now or sometime in the future, you have it ready to go. And the second thing where there's a benefit to looking at a process in that way, is that you can start to figure out how to stack things. So you can clump all of one sort of activity, on one day of the week, and then you free yourself up to to do maybe more creative work on the other days. I think another version of this is, I'm a big outliner. Not everybody is, but I'm a big outliner. And I think that one thing that you can do to improve your process in terms of outlining or whatever is document your process. Like figure out what you typically need while writing a book, so that you can prepare it up front, right? And so you have that process there, and then you did your outline, and now you're in the book, and now you realize, oh, I really wish I would have done this up front. Well, add that to your process for outlining, so that the next time you run down that checklist, you make sure that you're ready to write this book, right?
I'm feeling somewhat attacked, but I do feel like it's a really good answer, but I do feel somewhat attacked, because that is probably my biggest problem. I would say that's my biggest problem. So that's the mistake I make.
Yeah, I think that it's a great strategy, and it's taken me a long time to figure out, because a lot of times it's just like, I have an assistant and she helps me so much, but sometimes I'm like, oh, it'd just be so much faster if I did this myself. But if I just take a little time and make like a workflow for her, then I can give it to her and she can do it over and over again. But it's just like taking that time. And for years, I just, now I'm like, oh, I wish I had started making these workflows years ago, but got to catch up sometimes.
Yeah.
One thought that I've heard people doing recently is they use Loom. It's like a video recording tool, and they just talk through their process and they share their screen. And so they record what the process is, so they can hand it off to a VA, but they don't have to. But you don't have to sit down and literally type every line.
Oh man, that would be great. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, it's a free software, isn't it? It's like LOOM, like they have a free version. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a really good idea.
Notes. Yeah.
Let's do that. Okay. So you work with a lot of different authors and a lot of different genres. And we talked about like not chasing trends, but what trends do you see like with websites and, what's hot right now? Is there something that people should lean into? Is there something that you're like, don't even worry about that?
That's so 2002 or something. Yeah.
So one thing I would say to this is that the best place to look for new strategies or new techniques or what's working is outside the author genre, outside the author community. Particularly, look at the sort of the self-identified like content creators, right? Look at the creator economy. Look at what those people are doing, because they're very similar to authors in that they produce content, right? And then they sell it. But they tend to be like early adopters of things, and so they're right on the cusp of modern marketing strategies and things like that I think lots of authors could benefit from incorporating into their workflows. Yeah.
Okay, that's a great idea. Do you have any suggestions of things that you see kind of in the marketing world that could be adapted by authors?
I've actually got a real big one, and that one is there's been this movement in the content creator space and in the sort of software development space, which is basically sort of having an audience first mentality. So rather than writing to a genre, for instance, which is what most authors do, right? Instead, you go and you find a community that you want to write books for, right? Whether you find them on some subreddit or you find them on Twitter or you find them on TikTok, wherever it is, you find where the readers that you really want to write for live. And then you start interacting with them as a fellow fan of the thing, right? So you join the community, and then you start asking them questions about what they would want to see in the next book. Like, what book do you really wish was in the world? Like, you ask what was, the most recent thing that you read missing, right? You can be very specific, and you could ask them lots of questions, and they're going to tell you, because you're one of them, they're going to tell you what they really want to see in the world. The nice thing is that the very next thing you could post in that group is, I'm going to write that book, right? I'm going to write the book that meets, check all of your criteria. And because they know you, and because you are serving them directly exactly what they want, they are going to be heavily invested in seeing that work succeed, right? So built-in audience ready to advocate for your book when it comes out. You can continue giving them status updates, letting them know how the process is going, asking them for feedback, right? Writing that book in public, and again, you have advocates instead of readers, right? Instead of people who are simply interested in the tropes that you're serving in KU. Instead, you have people who will pay a premium for the thing that you are making for them, as if they were your patrons, right?
Yeah.
So that works really, really well. There's a great book on it called The Embedded Entrepreneur. It's by this guy, Arvid Kahl. And reading it, I could not help but think about authors, because I saw just a perfect example of how writing to market has led people a little bit astray, because I think it gets away from this. It gets away from the fact that you are serving human beings. And so you should be treating them like human beings and, let them respond accordingly.
Yeah. So it's based on relationships, basically. Like, that your reader, Marge loves Country Home Mysteries, and she's going to be excited to find this one. That makes a huge difference in the way you think about your books, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen this happen on TikTok a couple of times where TikTok users, they were authors when they got on, but they had just started writing their book, but they had also been fans of, let's say, dark romance or reverse harem, and already posting on these sites, and then they create this community, or they don't even create it. The community's there, and they just sort of fit in and are serving this community what they want. And I mean, there've been a couple of TikTok authors that had no books out, and they launched like top 100 or something, simply because they had that community already on TikTok. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
I think it, sorry.
No, that was it. That was just thinking that was, I wish that were me, but I'm not gonna lie, but it is just great when people do it.
I guess one thing is, I think that this opportunity is always open to all of us as authors, right? Like, there's always that opportunity to just participate in a community and just give them what they're looking for.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to say, because I know probably a lot of authors out there are thinking that they're too introverted to do something like this. You have to remember that, like, nobody is too introverted to go on Reddit and write some comments talking to other people. Nobody's too introverted to ask a question, right, in a group that they've participated in before. Everybody can do this. I think that that's the most important part of this year, is that there's a whole world of people who are looking for new books. You just have to let them know that you're going to write one for them.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. How have you seen indie publishing change over the last some years?
So big one, I think, is that the indie industry is no longer the Wild West, right? At the beginning, people could just show up, right? And there was gold in the river, right?
Right into town. Yeah.
And exactly. It's not like that anymore, right?
Yeah.
If you want to succeed as an indie author, you have to have great ideas. You have to have great execution. you need to market consistently, and you need to be persistent. You can't give up, right? You have to keep trying new things, keep learning new things, and keep getting feedback and adapting to that feedback, and you'll get there. It's just that you can't just expect the money to just, rain down on you simply because you arrived.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everything is maturing, because now I see authors making decisions very much like publishers used to. Used to, we were just writing whatever we wanted and put it out there. And now people are thinking, oh, if I can write to market, then I can, have a more successful book. And I'm not going to write this series anymore because it doesn't do as well as this one. I mean, that's exactly what traditional publishers have done for years. So I feel like we're kind of getting to that point where we're behaving more as a mature industry.
Yeah, to that end, I think that there's a second thing that's going on now, which is that the book market, the same thing that happened to every other market has happened to the book market, which is that every book that has ever existed is available to buy today, right? So we have a flooded market, and the thing about that is that it's great because anybody could jump in, but there's this challenge of standing out in that market. And so I think that the next wave that we're going to see is of different forms of curation that help to elevate the really good work into the spotlight. And so I think that there's a major niche for authors who want to go into, let's say, doing a newsletter where they recommend great books in their genre, or who want to be an editor for a zine, right, and get short stories from authors who are in their genre, and just elevate really good writers, right? Because part of the problem with the market is that since a reader could read literally every romance book that's ever been written, it's very hard to get them to see your book when you've just first published it, right?
Yeah, I think that's very true. Very true. And that is a way that authors can lean into providing information for their readers and kind of helping them curate, like you can curate the content and say, hey, if you like this type of book, here's some new books, or here's a classic that you might not have heard of. And it's a way to share with the readers are happy because, they want more books mostly. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to circle back to some of our questions that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. We talked about why an author needs a website, but one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was what are the characteristics that make a great author website? Like, what would you recommend authors definitely need on their website?
Okay, so I think that the key to making a really great website is putting yourself in the shoes of the person who is coming to your website. And so in the case of an author website, we've got four kinds of people. We've got potential readers, right? People who are just curious about who you are. We've got fans who want to go deeper into what you have to offer. We've got peers and industry professionals, people who might want to collaborate or, invite you to a project or anything like that. And then last but not least, we've got the media. Now, in the case of indie authors, it's probably going to be bloggers and podcasters, but look, if you're setting up press kits, it could very well be traditional media, traditional book reviewers, right? But the point is that you've got to cater to these four different groups of people. And so in their shoes, when you're going to design a website, you have to think about what they're going to be thinking when they arrive. And so questions like, am I in the right place, right? Like, how is it clear that I am at the website of the author who I think I should be? And then for people who know what they're looking for, how do I find XYZ, right? You have to make it easy for them to find the core things that they're looking for. What do I do now, right? You have to give them clear calls to action and not too many, right? One primary one, which is going to be sign up for your list, and then secondary one, which is going to be buy your books, and then the third is going to be send you an email or something like that. And you also always want to give them a reason to return to your website in the future. So at Site Arcade, we have this work in progress widget where you can you could include what book you're working on now on the site, and you can give status updates so that every time a reader comes by, they could see that maybe there's some changes, maybe there's some news, and it reminds them that you're a living human being where there is going to be news if they return someday, right? So things like that. You have to think about where what your visitor is going to be looking for. Another part of it is that I think a great website, especially for an author, has a very, very strong brand. By brand, we're talking about basics like, your pen name, your headshot, your bio, your tagline, but we're also talking about the secondary characteristics like your brand color and color palette, your font choices, your fav icon or logo icon. All of these things together, they convey exactly what it is that you bring to the table in your books, because unless a person's read you, they don't really know what you have to offer. And even if a person has read you, maybe they need a refresher, maybe they need it reinforced to remind them that it's worth their time to read the next book, right?
Right. Very good. Yeah. Well, what about how can you use your site, and how shouldn't you use one of your sites, of your sites that you build with SiteArcade?
So, just some principles for any site. The ways that you should use it are, first and foremost, you want to get people to join your list, right? Because if a person only visits your website once, getting them to sign up for your list means that you can get them to take future actions maybe once per week, if that's how often you email, right? Second thing is buy your books, right? The whole reason that your author persona exists in the world is to sell books. So that should be next. Third is to attend your events. Now, online events or offline events, it could even be asynchronous events like you doing an Ask Me Anything or something like that, or a poll even, whatever it is. The point is that getting engagement is really important for authors, because every behavior that you get a reader to take invites them deeper and deeper into your world, right? So engagement. Fourth is you can get them to follow your feeds, your other social media feeds. Now, you certainly on your website, you don't want to direct them to every single place that you have a profile. Instead, you want to direct them to the one or two places where you're active and you're very good at that platform. So Jamie, TikTok, that's you. Sarah, I'm not sure what your platform is, probably Facebook, right?
No, it's Instagram.
Instagram. Perfect.
Yes.
All right. So Instagram, that's the one, right? And you want to highlight the ones that you want them to go to, right? Because if they land on if they go to your LinkedIn, what good is that, right?
When you're somewhere you haven't been since 2005 or something, right? Yeah,
exactly. I think it's really good practice to squat on social media accounts so that nobody takes your handle or things like that. But that doesn't mean you have to send people there. Fifth, and this is a really important one, is you can use your website to fill your inbox. And that old chestnut, show me your inbox and I'll show you your future, right? It's like everything good that happens to you as an author is going to be because of an email. It's going to be because a super fan contacts you, and then you could then invite that fan to go evangelize on your behalf. It's going to be because an author wants to invite you to a box set. It's going to be because somebody wants to review your book in their next newsletter. Whatever it is, it's going to be through your inbox. So you want to make sure that it's easy for somebody to send you an email. Last thing, outreach. So I'm a huge proponent of having a press kit on your website and then actually using that press kit, sending it out to places where you want to appear, whether that's a podcast like this one or a book review blog or anywhere else. Press kits. So I worked at the Huffington Post for a while, and press kits were the only thing that got you through the door with a book blogger. They got plenty of indie books sent to them, but unless it was accompanied by a really compelling press kit, it didn't matter. But it did matter, is what the point here is, right? You could be there. You could be reviewed in Huffington Post or wherever else. So that's it. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I was going to say, tell us a little bit more about press kits, like what should be in it.
Yeah, what should be in it, and what should be on it. Yeah,
how those work.
Sure. So a press kit, it basically has two components. One is going to be the press release, which is could be sort of an evergreen release. It's basically like a teeny tiny news article that you write about yourself or about the most recent project that you put out. It's generally whatever is special about what you have to offer is the thing that you want to highlight, right? And then the second part is the press kit itself. And the press kit is always going to have contact information, URLs to your different social media platforms. It's going to have your representation if you're represented. It's going to have your books and all of the ISBNs that go along with it. Sounds weird, but it's one of the things that go there. And then the other really important thing that the media expect is your brand assets in multiple formats. So for instance, your headshot in many, many different sizes, so they can just copy and paste it somewhere else. Your bio in many different sizes, because if they're gonna, put you in a catalog somewhere, maybe they just need a three-liner, or maybe they want a full bio because they're going to use it to report on you, right? Same thing with if you have a logo icon, font choices, color palette. You want to put those little HTML hex codes in there. All of that stuff that would make it easy for them to, if they were going to write an article about you and they wanted to pass it along to their designer to make the banner image, right? They would want those colors, easy access. They would definitely want your headshot, stuff like that. So having all that stuff in place, you only have to do it once and, keep it up to date every now and then. The CytArcade press kits, by the way, auto-generate themselves in both HTML and PDF formats. That's coming sometime later this year. But anyway, point being is that the press kits are very easy to put together, even if you don't have CytArcade, and they're very, very useful when doing outreach.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that's stuff I hadn't even thought of.
Yeah. And it's lots of things that, like you said, you don't have to go update them all the time. But once they're there, if somebody needs them, and I'm thinking, like, for me, if I have all my codes for my colors and stuff, I do have them somewhere, but it's like I have to dig them out. And if they're on this site right here, that would be very efficient, much more efficient than my system.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's the reason I'm not famous yet. So there you go. Except in my own mind. There you. I probably need to get on that because I don't have one.
And I think that where I got on this train was actually Your A Game by Damon Suede and Heidi Cullinan. It's a fantastic book, but the thing that's most fantastic about it is that it points authors to the places that they never thought to look in terms of branding, promotion, marketing, stuff like that. So I honestly, I highly recommend it. It's a great book. And I think that more to the point here is that just because we're indie authors doesn't mean that we can't behave like we're traditionally published. We can't forget that there are many benefits to the TradPub system. Not that you have to get entangled in it, but that you could learn from it, right? That you could bring those tactics into our side of the world.
Right. Yeah. So how would you recommend people put like if you, like you're saying, you need a list of books for your ISBNs, like if that's a really long list, and some of these things are pretty, could be big. Would you recommend like a link that they can download a PDF or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, so
or just one document with all the information.
It's, the thing is that if you organize it well, the ISBNs could just be the last page in your press kit or at the very end of your press kit in an HTML format. Okay. Or how we do it is. I know that our press kits aren't out yet, but we actually fold the ISBNs behind the covers. So so they can grab the ISBN, it sort of pops out. So you could do things like that. I know that, that's a little bit out there, but yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it because if somebody's clicking on the link to your press kit, they know what to expect when they get there.
Right.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right.
That sounds great. I love that.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. And you've just given us so much information, so many things to work on and think about. Okay. So we always like to ask, what is the best thing you've done to set yourself up for success? Can be anything.
As an author or as a
human being? Yeah.
Either one, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah. I'll give you this one. Okay. So, the thing that I think has really helped me, both in terms of being an indie author and in terms of CytArcade and pretty much everywhere else in life, is being willing to dive deep into whatever I need to learn. So reading really good books on the topic, experimenting, getting feedback from people who know that topic better than I do, and continuing that cycle, and then going back and looking for new resources and going over and over and over again until I figure out what good looks like and how I can do that. And so I think that, as authors, we're constantly learning, right? We're constantly evolving. And I think that it's really important to lean into it rather than trying to circumvent the learning process, because that's where you're going to find your greatest successes.
Right. That's awesome. And you also ask the hard questions. Always, you question the premise. And I love that too, because then you really do get to the heart of things. And I appreciate that about you. Plus you surround yourself with really good friends.
I do. I really do have the best friends.
That's funny.
Oh my gosh. That's been so great. Before you go though, let us ask you, what do you see coming in the indie world?
I did a lot of thinking about this question, and there's two things that I think are really exciting. One that I see is that I think that we're really close to AI writing assistants. So there's this app that I used the other day called Pseudo-Write. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. It's a really, really cool tool. You can write in it, and then you could ask the AI to give you suggestions based on what part of the process that you're in. So you could do brainstorming. It'll suggest characters that match with the kinds of characters that you already have in your book. You can invite it to expand dialogue sections or expand descriptions. Really cool, fun to try. And then the other thing that I think is coming is that recently I saw some really great image generation AI that's come out, that I think that the thing that we're going to see in a couple of years is we're going to see audiobook visualizations like there used to be for music, except it's going to be with images that actually show you what the book could look like, right? So two other links. If you look at OpenAI's DALL-E website, or if you look at Google's Imagen website, they you can play around with their algorithm, and you could see how text is transformed into images. And it's very, very easy to imagine that if you don't feel like cleaning the living room while you're listening to your audiobook, that you could just watch these sort of like images of the book come to life right in front of you. So those two things, I think that they're coming very soon. And if they aren't, I think that somebody should build them, because
well, in all your spare time, you can do that.
Yeah, you're very futuristic. Sarah and I are not futuristic.
No.
Neither one of us are very high when it comes to futuristic. So
but that's really fascinating stuff to think about. And I hadn't even thought about the visualization for audiobooks, but that makes total sense.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, like play around with them on the websites. It's just amazing to see what the world is going to be like in the next couple of years. Yeah. It's exciting times.
Yeah, it is. It is. So Mike, tell us where people can find you and where they can find Side Arcade.
Sure. So, pop over to Side Arcade at sidearcade.com and try the demo. It's free and there's no time limit. So, even if you just want to, generate a website to see what it could look like and then play around with it, totally fine. If you want, you could put in J.K. Rowling or James Patterson. So many people do that. Try it. See what our software does. It's fun. And like, even if you're not ready for a website today, which maybe you might be, but even if you're not, it's good to know what your options are for, when your hosting plan expires or something like that. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's Site Arcade, SITEARCADE.com.
Exactly.
Yep. Very good. Very good. All right. Well, thanks for being here. It's been great.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. And if you ever want me back on to talk about website stuff, I would happily be here.
We will save all of our website questions for you. All right. So we will have all those links at wishidknownthenpodcast.com. And thanks to Alexa Larberg for editing and producing the podcast, and to Adriel Williams for doing the admin. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.